All right, so this is Buildup. It's a course which is really focused on what Aaron Marco calls the missing link or the missing something, right? In our industry, in real estate development, real estate investing, a lot of people are getting very good at determining a highest and best use and coming up with imaginative designs and cool floor plans. They understand more and more about zoning and severances and rezoning and official plans or master plans. I mean, there's a lot of real estate training out there that's actually pretty good in real estate investing and developing, except in one area, and that is construction and renovation. I am a real estate developer. I've been doing this for a very long time, but I am not a constructor. And it was Aaron Marco, who's a master builder, who said to me, we ought to do a course focused on how to bring construction projects and renovation projects in on time and on budget with as few deficiencies as possible. So we're going to do a course. It's going to last April, May, and June, if you could stick with us. And some people will come live, as we are today with you folks. And probably more than half will have to watch it in replay, unfortunately, because they actually have a real job, unlike me, which is mostly coaching and some real estate brokerage that I do, and a little bit of development work on my own. If you have any questions for me or for Aaron, put them in the chat box. I think most of you know how Zoom works, but put them in the chat box. I'll try and keep an eye on that. And just interrupt us at any time through the chat box. And most of the questions, I suspect, will be directed to Aaron. This class will last about 90 minutes. Sometimes it lasts 91 or 92 minutes if we go overtime, but we will not go more than a minute or two, maybe 3 minutes over. So we'll respect your time if you have to get back to your work or you have other appointments to go to. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'll do that now. And let's see, where are we? Over here, and I'll go to the start. And Aaron, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll go control F5. All right. So this is lecture 1. I better put this over here. This is lecture 1 of Buildup, how to grow an unbeatable and sustainable real estate portfolio. And a big part of that, you guys, is making sure that you can bring your projects in on time and on budget with as few deficiencies as possible. I'm one of the lecturers, and Aaron, of course, is the other. A little bit more about Aaron. I think many of you know Aaron, but he's in the business. He's been in the business, commercial, residential, industrial, for 27 years. He doesn't look old enough, but he wrote this, not me, so it must be true. And he's got a number of certifications and licenses in many, many different trades, right? And I lost track of the number of companies he owns, but it's shown here as 16. So that's a lot of different types of operations that he runs: construction, accommodation, consumption. You'll hear a lot more about it. And he's done amazing projects, remodeled and built embassies, built microbreweries. He always brings beer, by the way, if you ever visit with him, or he gives you beer. He's done multi-family units. He's done commercial. I mean, it's an amazing career. And again, the most important thing that we're going to learn through this course is from Aaron about how to bring construction projects in on time and on budget. This is me. Most of you, I'm sure, know me, but some do not. This is my Twitter CV. Bruce is an entrepreneur, real estate broker, developer, and coach, urban guru, keynote speaker, Sens founder, novelist, blogger, peerless husband, and dad. You never guess who wrote that. And on this screen here, I also put my personal philosophy down, just so you know a little bit more about me. And it's really not my philosophy. I learned this from a friend of mine who's now passed on. His name was Peter Patafi, but I've adopted it as my own. And my philosophy is this: first, take care of your business. Second, so your business can take care of you and your family. Third, so your family can take care of you. Fourth, so you don't become a burden on society. Fifth, so you can help other people. And sixth, so they can help your business. It's a circle. And a lot of people, especially young people, debate with me whether my first priority is correct. Take care of your business. And, many of my students are 21, 22, whatever. And of course, they think that number one thing in life is love, perfectly understandable at that age. But the most important thing in life is actually trust. If you don't trust a person, whether it's your significant other or your contractor, you're in trouble, right? And I also ask them, do you know what the number one cause of divorce is? And most of the young people will say, well, I don't really love him. Um, and you know, or her, and that really probably isn't true. It's probably financial stress. So if you take care of your business, you are taking care of your family, and your family can take care of you. Anyway, that's my philosophy, and you can debate whether that's correct or not. So we're going to do a build-up lecture every Thursday, pretty much for the next 3 months. They'll be 90 minutes long. We'll take a few breaks. And after I hand this over to Aaron, I'll put this schedule in the chat box so you guys have it. So you can put it in your calendar and book the dates if you want to continue with us. All right. So it'll be, excuse me for that. It'll be every Thursday at noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time for pretty much the next 3 months with a few breaks. And like I said, you don't have to write it down or anything. I'll put it in the chat box. There is an assignment. If you're going to stick with us on the course, I want you to do an assignment, just one assignment, and you got 3 months to do it, which is to pick a project. It could be one you're working on or one you would like to work on. It could be a renovation, or it could be a new construction project. It's up to you. It could be in any one of the areas, multi-res, commercial, recreational, industrial, even institutional or not-for-profit. You decide, and then you figure out what its HABU is, highest and best use is, its functional program. Functional program is just a funny way of saying you build a spreadsheet and it says, these are the uses we're going to put the building to and the land, and this is the area it takes up. Right? How many square feet in a building, or how many, square feet of the land do you need to do these things? So your functional program is very simple, but very important. And then you do a C-level budget. Aaron will help you with that. I will help you with that. A C-level budget just means it's not accurate to, the penny. Hopefully it's accurate to within 5 or 10%, not more than 10% wrong. And then you develop revenue streams. And as I said to James just before we started, I had a call with James a few minutes ago. I'm kind of an expert in animation, which is how to add new revenue streams to projects. So one of the things I'd like you guys to do with your projects, your assignment, is reach back to me and we'll talk about how to animate it, how to add new revenue streams, whether it's a commercial project or it's a residential one or industrial, whatever. There's some really cool stuff that we're doing that are moving cap rates up by a point or 1.5, maybe 2 points, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is quite a bit. So we'll talk revenue streams and ROI. And then number 8 on my list is developing a critical path schedule. Both Aaron and I will talk a lot about that, how to do that, and how to create a schedule that hopefully you'll be able to adhere to, or more importantly, your contractor will be able to adhere to it. And then Aaron stresses this a lot. What is the team that you need? Do you need a mortgage broker? Do you need an appraiser? You need a contractor, you need trades, you need lawyers. I mean, there's a lot of planners. Who knows what you need? You need to have a good team. And remember what I said, the number one thing in life is trust. So you've got to make sure that this is a team that you like and trust. All right. Number 10, you got to figure out how to finance it. So a plan with, a project without finance is really not a project at all. So you've got to figure that out. And then you got to know going in, it would help to know going in if it's a buy and hold, or maybe it's a buy and sell, right? You got to know, you got to think about that. And then you summarize your assignment into PowerPoint. You send that to me and Aaron. We'll actually grade it. And believe it or not, you'll get a grad certificate if you get a B- on your assignment or better. Hopefully you'll all get B, B+, A-, A. Somebody will get an A+, I have no doubt. All right, so that's your assignment. And some of you, and again, I'll put this in the chat box after I hand this thing off to Aaron in a few minutes. I've asked you all to do a little bit of homework or pre-preparation for the course. Do my online ECQ test. it tends to measure your entrepreneurial skills. It's actually pretty good at doing that. It takes about 5 or 6 minutes. It's fun to do. And then there's some other things on this list which I'd like you to do, some reading and some refreshers on how to do cap rates and stuff like that. Many of you are experts at that, but I'd like you to make sure that you are, and so I'll send you some in the chat box. You'll see this stuff. I did highlight number 4 on this, and I just wanted to show you. I'm going to stop sharing this screen for a moment. I wanted to show you something that is really mind-blowing, and I'm sure many of you have already experimented with this, but I wanted to show you just how good AI, artificial intelligence, is. There's a new tool out there. It's right now it's free to use. I'm not sure it'll be free for very long, but right now it is free to use. It's called ChatGPT. Many of you have heard about these AIs, and a lot of my coaching clients are using them now, and boy, are they ever good. So I'm going to share my other screen with you, and you'll be able to see it. Again, Aaron, can you give me the thumbs up if you can see the screen? Thank you.
Yep.
So this is ChatGPT. You can see the URL here. It's chat.openai.com/chat. That's the URL. It's free. You have to sign up. And so just before we got going, maybe a couple of hours ago now, actually, I asked this AI, can you show me an example of a Gantt chart? Really, a Gantt chart is just taking a critical path schedule and then developing it into a chart. You often see them on the walls in construction offices, and think about it, it's very simple to think about. If you were building a house, you don't want the guys who are doing the framing to come before you finish the footing and foundation and the backfill. And you don't want the roofers to come until the framing is done, right? I mean, it's obvious that certain things have to follow other things, but it's very, very important to have a critical path schedule. And so you can see I just typed in my question. You should be able to see it on the screen. Can you show me an example of a Gantt chart for a home to be constructed? Oh, something. Okay, my demonstration isn't working very well. I'll try again. Sorry about this, you guys. Can you show me a Gantt chart for a new home construction? Did I spell it right? My spelling is usually terrible. I think that's okay now. Let's see if I can do a little better now. Aaron, are you watching this?
Mm-hmm. Put me out of a job.
I'm not going to comment on that. Okay, so I mean, does that blow your mind, you guys? All right, and next week, I will go through this in a great deal more detail. But if you look at this, it basically gets it right. You've got to do some design and planning. You got to do some site prep. You got to do some framing, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, installation, drywall, interior finishing, exterior finishing. It's very basic, but it's very helpful. So what I'm getting at is that there are tools out there that you can buy that are very expensive, like Microsoft Project, and there's a few other softwares out there that are a little less expensive, but there's all kinds of free tools out there that'll help you, analyze your projects. And that ChatGPT thing, when you have a question, you should go there first, in my opinion. Okay, what is the meaning of life? You can ask that. I don't know. Maybe it'll have an answer for that. All right, so let's go back here. Did I miss anything? Okay, I'm just putting the chat box over here. Sorry, guys, I got to organize myself. All right, moved over there. Okay, let's go back to sharing the slides. And I promised to get myself out of here. I promised Aaron I would not take more than 30 minutes. So I will get to you in a few minutes, Aaron. All right, let me put this over here too. All right. Organize all these things. All right. So I did ask you to do some homework. Some of you have done it, some of you haven't. As I said, I will put this in the chat box, and you can do that if you want to. Next week, I am going to show you, this is a commercial project that where I'm acting as the development manager for a veterinarian. It's a 5,400 square foot clinic. You can see the design up here. It's going to be a beautiful new clinic. And I'll show you what that looks like, the assignment that I've talked about in every detail. So everything from what does the schedule look like, what does the budget look like. Oh, thank you, Jake. It is a very cool building. I didn't design it. You know, if you want any design, I could draw a square or a rectangle. That's about it. But this is done by P2, P squared, very, very good architectural technologists and tremendously effective. Anyway, I'll take you through the entire project and you'll see all the different things that you need to consider when you're doing new construction. And really, it doesn't matter whether it's a commercial building like this or a multi-res building or just a duplex that you're building. The process is very, very similar in terms of getting organized. All right. And I wanted to show you, many of you have seen this before. I'll show you a Prof. Bruce failure, all right? Because we learn sometimes more from our failures than from our successes. It'll just take me a couple minutes to show you. But this is a building my wife and I bought in downtown Belleville. It's a 3-story mixed-use building. The top 2 floors are residential. The bottom floor is commercial. And this is a view of the back of the building. You can see it was in basically catastrophic condition when we bought it. But the location is excellent and the bones of the building are excellent, but it had been horribly badly mistreated. It's not a heritage building, but it does go back 175 years. It is a fantastic structure and you'll see what we did. We bought it for almost nothing, $22.76 per square foot of built up area, about $285,000. So we didn't pay very much for it. It was a power of sale. But it didn't have any, it was disconnected from power. The former owner hadn't paid the power, hadn't paid the water bill, hadn't paid the gas bill, hadn't paid, you know, I mean, it was just amazing. And they had punched holes through bearing walls, and they had punched holes through bearing walls. And instead of, you know, fixing the structure as it started to fail, the windows on the second level at the back were popping out, and they just boarded up the windows and abandoned the second floor and then abandoned the third floor. So instead of fixing the structural issues, they just let them get worse. So it was pretty horribly abused. And you can sort of see here some of the stuff that we've been doing on it. We've been at this for 2.5 years. This is what it looked like when we bought it with this horrible metal cladding. We've been peeling it off, and you can start to see it's incredible today what it looks like today. But it is a really beautiful structure with triple brick, not double brick, Aaron, triple. And you can start to see now the kinds of you know, residences that we're developing inside with safe and sound insulation. You can sort of see the radiators that we reconditioned here as hot water heating. It's very quiet in there. It's got 11, 12, 14, 15 foot ceiling heights. They're really extraordinary apartments. And you can see some of the work we've been doing on the back as we fix the structure. We put in new curtain wall here, new windows, a new fire escape. This is one of our designers putting up, you know, a fake bookshelf. You can see some of the kitchens and some of the other work that's going on. It'll be really an extraordinary building when it's finished. This is our lead project coordinator, Mark Turner, and his son, Jordan, who've been on this from day one. And our very first tenant was Loyalist College, which is a big college in that area. And they have an accelerate or an incubator there. So if you want to start a business, you go there. And you can sort of see some of the massive amount of work that we've been doing on the building. I'm all about placemaking. So this is the side of the building, and we agreed to allow Loyalist College to put up their mural. It's a beautiful mural, and it's part of placemaking to make your building different and stand out. So we've done a lot of good things here. And just to give you an idea what it looked like on the inside when we bought it, it was a complete mess, right? It was just unbelievable. There should be a jail for bad building owners, right, Aaron?
Yes.
All right. So the original budget for this was $2 million to fix it up. We're now over 4. The original schedule was 18 months. We're now 2.5 years, and we're close to getting occupancy permit. We're hoping it will be this month, but it's really been painful. And so I asked ChatGPT another question. What are the 10 biggest mistakes people make in new construction? And you can see it on the screen here. I'll just mention a few of them. Number one, not hiring a reputable builder or contractor. This can lead to poor workmanship and delays. We have a very good project coordinator, but we should have had somebody like Aaron come in as the general contractor, or even just as a coach, to bring this in on time and on schedule. On schedule and on budget. Number three, underestimating costs. Wow, did we ever do that? Not considering the site, factors such as soil conditions, drainage, and slope. We had water in this building, and it took us a hell of a lot of site works to get rid of that. Number seven, poor communication with the builder. We could have done a better job. That's partly on me, but partly on them. And so there are 10 here. But the number one thing in life is trust, and you make sure that you do a better job in choosing your general contractor and your trades. And I'm pretty sure, and this I'm pumping Aaron's tires here, but I'm pretty sure that if I'd known him 2.5 years ago and he had helped me with this project, he probably would have saved me and my wife $1 million in at least 6 months, maybe 8 months to get it done. All right, now that's the bad news on the project. The good news is that in the 2.5 years that we've been working on it, rents in this area have gone up tremendously, both on the residential side and the commercial side. And we're going to turn the second floor into an Airbnb, or as Paula McFarland calls it, a digital concierge hotel. The reason we don't just call it an Airbnb hotel is that, Paula McFarland, who's an expert in this, and runs a number of Airbnbs and is opening up a very exciting new project called Hotel Julie in Stratford, Ontario soon, I think next month. She calls it a digital concierge hotel because in addition to the Airbnb platform, she's going to use vacation rental by owner, Vrbo, and also booking.com, right? So it's really not just Airbnb anymore. But the good news is our revenues have doubled. So our costs have doubled, but our revenues have doubled. And that's a really important part of saving your own bacon. The other thing that I just put in here for fun was we did find and discover an extra 2,000 square feet. We didn't know we had. How is that possible? Well, this is what we found. And this is a stairwell to the basement that had been covered up, we think, for 100 years. And when we removed it, we realized that we have an extra 2,000 square feet that we can find some use for. Maybe it'll be a wine cellar or a whiskey cellar, I don't know, or maybe just storage. We'll figure out a use for it. So I don't want you to think that the downtown makeover model is uniformly a bad model. Certainly my example of it is not great. But I just wanted to show you very quickly one that was a success. This is a young client of mine who bought this building in Pembroke, which is a very small town. And the commercial space had been empty for a long time, and the apartments were occupied, but were not generating a lot of rent. So he bought this property for very little money. He made the commercial space on the ground floor smaller and put a ground floor apartment in back. So now he has 3 apartments instead of 2 and a smaller commercial space. And if you look what he did, he's done really well with it. He has, I think, about $300,000 in the building today. I think he bought it for about $125,000. He put in probably $175,000 of renovations. Within a very short period of time, it was appraised, because the revenues had gone up to $4,500 a month. It was appraised at $660,000. He was able to remortgage it in less than 18 months and pull out $129,000 in tax-free cash, right? With just a 65% loan-to-value mortgage. So it's been very successful for him, and he's a very successful young man. And now he loves real estate, and he's doing a bunch more. And he did a better job than I did. And what he did with the ground floor, you can see it here, was he turned it into a laundromat, and the manager, operates this, and it has an apartment right behind it. So it's a live-work condition, and it's been a tremendous success. Now, my client, I think he's now 32. He has his own helicopter, and he has a really thriving business, and he's threatened to take me up in his helicopter this summer. All right, so I think that's enough from me. I'm going to pause sharing. Again, if you have any questions at all, put them in the chat box, but watch in the next few minutes as Aaron gets going. I'll put some of the stuff that I want you to see in the chat box. You have to actually copy it out, put it on a Word document or put it on a text file, put it in your calendar, do something with it. All right. Okay, over to you, Aaron.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Let me just get this going. I apologize if my internet's not great. This last winter storm we had kind of knocked out the network a little bit where we are here, so it might bounce in and out a bit, but we'll stay on track. So what I wanted to do, and welcome everyone, what I wanted to do was explain a little bit about the companies I have as it relates to who I am and the integration of my different companies with each other. I think it'll become quite pertinent as we move forward with this. To understand a little bit about my background and where I come from and the kind of things I do. So I have grouped my companies into three distinct categories. The first one is like my baby, the construction company. I've been in construction, like Bruce says, for almost 26 years. One of the things that I did very early on, I started out by running a flooring company. I was the largest flooring company in Eastern Ottawa. And I hurt my back one day and I realized that it was not going to be a sustainable way for me to manage my family's livelihood. So I made the decision early on that I wanted to become a really interesting general contractor. And I made a lot of stops along the way. I went and worked at different places for 2 to 3 years. I went and worked at a paint company. I ran a heating and cooling company. I ran an electrical company. I went out and opened my own siding, window, and door company. And I really wanted to make sure that when I stopped in someone's house or on their build, that I understood the entire envelope inside and out. And I put a lot of time and effort and a lot of companies between me to be able to do that so that I could position myself as I showed up to any house and know that I know as much as anyone else, if not more than most. So that's kind of how I've evolved myself. And again, so AIM project management, that's my key go-to business. Right now, I'm actually sitting in a sales center. We're in our film studio for small living company. Well, we will talk about this a bit more, but we specialize in building tiny homes. We have our own. We will be the first tiny home development in Canada. It has started. To date, we've sold 30 homes. I actually sold 6 more yesterday, Bruce. So
wow.
we've been very successful, and we just launched the sales market on this 3 weeks ago. So we're averaging about 10 homes a week, which is pretty exciting. I own a rental company, and we'll talk about animation and stuff later on. But what you'll see is I just look for holes in my business, and I tend to fill them by opening a new company. My rental company actually specializes in construction trailers. I own somewhere around 20 trailers, different sizes, different orientations. I have 10 of them that are fully outfitted that can go to any construction site across Ontario, and people can work right out of it. I just saw a need for that market and seemed to be something I could fill very easily. So I took care of that. This year I opened my own excavation company. We currently have a 8-ton backhoe. We have a 4-ton mini X. I just put an offer in on a 20-ton shovel, a bunch of trailers, a bunch of trucks. Again, with the kind of things I'm doing, I realized at some point, like, why would I pay someone $180 to dig a foundation when I can do it for $100? It seemed like a very logical choice, and to be honest, I love equipment, so it's been really fun buying all this stuff and playing around with it, and my kids love it, so I think it's interesting. AIM concept and development. This is the coaching business. Bruce has kind of encouraged me over the year plus to kind of get into this. We did a special session down in Mexico for a week where I met many of the people I see on the screen today. I wasn't entirely sure that I wanted to do this business, but I felt, and now that I've been doing it for a little while, I've been coaching actually a fair number of contractors, which was very eye-opening for me because I didn't think they'd actually want my coaching or want to listen to what I had to say. But what I realized in the contracting world, and we'll get into this as we go on, is most of these guys, myself included, like most of us don't go to school for this stuff. We just end up building a house because one day someone asked and we took on the contract. And I'm sure everyone on this call has dealt with that kind of either builder or roofer or, whatever the case may be. And I realized that I think I have a lot to offer, and we can do so much better as an industry. We're pretty lacking in a lot of areas. So in the process of opening a project development company as well, a few things to iron out on that end, but we'd like to look at taking the project from the beginning to the end. So that's in the process of happening. I just signed a deal yesterday to open my own siding company. Again, every house we do, every tiny home needs siding, it needs windows and doors. So I figured why not just do it in-house? So that's coming. Modulink Design and Build will be one of the speakers we're going to bring on. They're a really interesting company. They brought me on as an advisor. They currently have an offer to me on the table of some equity shares. At this point, I'm just an advisor because I think it's a really neat product, and we'll talk about that extensively next week. So I also own a variety of accommodation businesses. I own a 62-acre eco resort where the east of where I'm sitting today. That'll be a case study because it's a really interesting business model, and people with land will want to hear this story. It's very fascinating. I'm a partner in a couple of funds. So the two different funds, we have a plex, a fiveplex, are in the process in various stages of development. I put a company on here that we just opened this year. It's called the Bourget train station. We were approached by our city planners. They actually gave us a century-old train station. They gave it to us for $1. And they gave us $450,000 of city money to do the renovation on this project. So we'll talk about this a bit more because this one kind of really excites me. I think it's really interesting, and it's the first time the city's actually given me money. So it was it was a nice change for me. I'm a wedding officiant. I'm a bit of a sucker for love stories and whatnot. I took this on last year to marry a couple of the people that work for me. And through the eco resort we do about 6 to 8 weddings a year, and I officiate about half of them. So it's kind of a pain, but it's part of what I do and part of who I am. The next one we'll talk about as a case study a little bit later. We own a bunch of tenant-owned buildings in downtown Rockland. One of them, my wife is one of the tenants, which if I had to do again, I'd probably skip because she's a terrible tenant. But we'll talk a little bit about how that works, and those of you laughing, you know her, so that'll be a bit interesting. We'll look at that model. And the last thing I have is I have some consumption businesses. So Broken Stick Brewing Company, 2 breweries now to date. It started out as a passion project. It's like now all I do is drink a lot of beer, which is kind of my wife hates, but it's part of that. I own a wood-fired pizza oven business, and we just opened what we're calling Hillside Barbecue. We ordered about a $50,000 fully outfitted barbecue trailer, so we'll start making barbecue up on the hill in about a month or so. So that's a little bit about me. It's the companies I own. I want to start on animations because this is a word that, to be very honest with you, I actually didn't know what it meant in the context of real estate. Bruce kind of introduced me to this word when we were in Mexico. I just have always kind of been doing it. I just didn't realize it was a thing. I think it's one of the things I really want to talk about on this course because it's so critically important to adding value to every project and every company that you are involved with. I want to show you the different animations that we've done on every case study. Like everything we do is like a study in. I remodeled my company mantra to this year to rethink construction, and I think that's part of the animation play. And I really like the idea of the opportunistic thinking and the creative out of the box mantra. The other thing that I think I'm particularly good at is animating businesses. I look for holes in what I offer. I look for holes that are around me, and I tend to open a business to fill that hole. I will talk about the next slide, kind of goes into like partnerships and whatnot. I really want to emphasize how I open the businesses. And as we go through them individually, we'll look at how I set up my partnership structures. And really one of the reasons that I'm able to open and run 16 businesses are the people that are involved around me. I employ any given day, depending on the season, anywhere from 30 to now it's going to be 60 people this summer. And I'm only able to do that because I surround myself with really, really smart people. I empower them. I share equity. We'll get into this a little bit more because I think this is a really unique way to add to your business offerings. I did mention partnerships. I'm going to actually open up a couple of the partnership agreements we have in the coming weeks and show you exactly how I structured them and why. I may have one of my other business partners kind of come in and talk about how it's worked for him, how it works for the business. I think it's really important. And I know there's people on this call that I've spoken with that have gone through very terrible partnerships and challenging partnerships. And I think there are a lot of ways to mitigate that at the front end. And I really want to share the ways I do it, because not that I'm doing everything right. I just know that I have 16 companies and they all seem to be running fairly decently. So that'll be part of the structure that I'd like to share with everyone. Bruce kind of touched on this a bit, but I just want to go back in a little bit more detail. Yeah, the interactive approach to this, I think, is the most important. I love questions. If I can't answer a question today, I'll make sure that I get back to you, or Bruce will get back to you. The more that comes in, the better this course evolves and becomes. I'm a big guy on challenges. You'll see we're going to be doing a bunch of subject matter experts. If there's something you don't see on the list and you want to challenge me and challenge my network, send out a topic. If you want to have an amazing appraiser on there, like, challenge me to bring some people to the table to make this a better course. And that's what I'll do. I don't know as many people as Bruce does, but in the construction world, my Rolodex is pretty thick, and I love reaching out to my friends and coworkers and have them jump on and give them the opportunity to talk as well. So the more the merrier. That's the big takeaway from me. We will have a lot of subject matter experts. I call them SMEs. They will be at least one per course. They're people that I have interacted with over several years. They're relationship pieces for me. They're people that I trust, respect, and I know they have brought value to my projects. They're the reason that I can bring my numbers down, and I want to make sure they share like their secret sauce, because to be able to get that number down is not relevant to just one person. It takes an entire team, and a lot of that are the people behind the scenes that are financing, supporting, appraising, electricians, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's going to be a really big part of this, and it's really the reason that I wanted to do it with Bruce, because like, let's bring people in. As much as I like to talk, and those of you know me know I like to talk, I think it's more important to hear from really smart people that specialize in one or two things, because the value that comes from that, and furthermore, the value that comes from maybe making a new connection. Maybe you find someone that can help you find your next mortgage or help you appraise your next house. There's so much value and fiscal responsibility there. So just a bit more on the subject matter experts. The general layout that we're looking to do is to have them kind of present a little bit about, well, about themselves, like who they are, their family, how they got into it, and then a little bit about their business and their mantra and what they do and what they can do to help everyone on this call. I'm thinking somewhere in the range of like 5 to 10, maybe 20 minutes. At the end of it, an open question and answer period. The one thing I want to stress about some of these people is this isn't what they do for a living. They're not professional talkers. They're not out in the mainstream. Though they can maybe get a bit nervous about some of this stuff, so we'll have to give them a bit of slack, but they'll bring a ton of value to this course. It will be the chance, as far as I can see, for everyone on this call to pick their brain. And I really would love that, you're going to get out of this what you put into it. So when we'll let you know the next couple of weeks who will be speaking, we can attach websites and contact information so you can kind of prepare, so that when they're there, you're asking pertinent questions and developing your personal brand on this stuff.
So Aaron,
Yes.
I know that you're going to bring in some trades. What are some of the trades people that you're going to bring in? What are some of those?
You jumped ahead of me. I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll highlight some of the people that'll come in and why. So that'll give me a couple slides, and we'll get.
I was pretty sure it was in there, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah, we'll get to that real quick.
Thank you.
So the course focus as it pertains to construction. The very first and probably most important thing we're going to deal with is like what your team looks like, who needs to be on it and why. And the way I'd like to present, because I have the benefit of being a constructor, but also being an owner. So I kind of see this a little bit from both eyes. So I would like to present on both topics, like the things that are important to builders, the things that are important to subcontractors, and the things that are important to me as an owner of a building or a development executive, or however that looks. So that the presentation will not be exclusive real estate investor. It'll be real estate investor plus GC contractor. So you kind of see both sides of the equation. And I think it will make the relationship piece much better, because you'll know when to give and when to take. And this is, if you're developing large projects, if you're doing multifamily homes, you know, this is a marriage. You're going to be with this person, like in Bruce's case, for 2 to 3 years. And setting up that relationship and understanding the important things that drive my business and make me excited and keep me focused, I think is very important to having a successful project. Bruce's mantra for me is on time and on budget. What I'd like to do, and as much as that's the important concept, what I'd like to do is look at it from the other side, or what are the things that throw us off time? What are the things that add budget to us, to these projects, so that when they happen, you have the skills and the tools to kind of massage them back on, because they're going to happen. Like this is what we do. But it's really important for me not to focus so much on how to get to $200 a square foot, but how to understand why you're at $200 or $210 or $220. That part for me is more important, and that's where a lot of the subject matter experts are going to come in, and they are the ones that are going to help massage this and really explain why you get to where you get. Good, right, bad, or indifferent. Like, it doesn't matter if you're high or low. It's important to understand why you're high and low. I love the next slide is near and dear to my heart. I will share some of the contracts that I have with you. I'm going to share why I do things the way I do, because my business model is a bit different. It's not conventional. To give you an idea, I haven't provided
are you going to rotate the slide?
No, we're still on the same one.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I haven't provided an estimate to a job in like 4.5 years. I do things in a very unique way, and we'll go through some of that contractual stuff. So the meat and potatoes of the building will feature a couple of weeks where we'll just kind of go through. They won't be in depth. You don't need to know how to pour a foundation, but you need to understand the different foundations that are available. We will go through that pretty quickly. There'll be a lot of take-home information on that. I spend a lot of my time on the guts of the building. I'm really passionate about that. I did run a mechanical company, so I understand it very well. So we will spend a lot of time on that, because there's a lot of cost savings and a lot of interesting new stuff pertains to what's important on the building side. And then some of the remaining stuff is different. Interiors is not building a dream home and building a rental unit. I only work for investors, and the reason is they don't tend to get as attacked, and I really will focus on that a bit. The third unit does not excite people. It should. I don't know that Bruce knows this story, but I was working in downtown Ottawa, Minto Place. I was building the law office of Soloway Wright. It's a 3-story building in Minto Place. They had 3 units, or 3 stories. We were responsible for all the HVAC, so all the ductwork and plumbing, and we were doing all the civil work, so all the drywall, things like that. The electricians had gone through the day before and done demo, and they had removed all the live wires, cleaned up all the ceiling, and made it ready for us to go do the ductwork. And I had one of my key foremen, who was 62 years old, up in the ceiling on a ladder, reached out, touched a wire that ended up being live, and it shot him across the floor and almost killed him. Wow. I had to rush him. I took him to the hospital. I went to the hospital with him in the ambulance. I had to meet his wife, and I thought he was going to die. He survived. He quit the next day. And it's just such a stunning realization for me that health and safety, and having the correct manual, having all of your documentation on your sites, having your first aid dialed in, it will happen one day on one of your sites, and you will be responsible for some of it. It's really, really critical. I will share with you guys the health and safety manual that I have. You're welcome to copy it. And the health and safety sign-off sheets that I force and have all of my subs sign at before they even start on any of my sites. It is, I can't even stress how critical this one is. No one wants to hear it because it's not exciting and has nothing to do with money and anything, but it could save someone's life, and it could potentially save someone from going to jail. Had that gentleman died, because I dealt with the Ministry of Labor, had he died, someone from that electrical company was going to be put in jail. It was very, very serious. The last thing that's really important, I want to talk a little bit about green construction. I've kind of revamped my company. As I mentioned, we changed the logo to Rethink Construction. I really use a lot of off-grid techniques. I use incinerating toilets. I own my own sawmill. I like to animate things that fit down the eco model. We're going to look at some really amazing programs from CMHC. Actually, we'll have a subject matter expert speak about that. And I'll show you some ways that you'll be able to refinance your buildings at like 45-year AMs and less than 5% rates. And that won't be for me. We'll actually have someone come from CMHC and speak about these programs. And it's just by doing some really simple eco changes that you implement at the design phase. And that will get through with some subject matter experts to really get that right from the horse's mouth. So I think that's a really important part. And I think it's an important part of building moving forward. It should be it's part of my story. I focus on that. I do a lot of videography. We have a part-time videographer on staff. I film a lot of what we do, and it makes up part of my brand. I think it's very important, and we're moving into a world where it's going to be forced on us, so we may as well get in front of it. So in the next couple of weeks, as I mentioned, I wanted to share the different people that we're going to speak to. Rob Mariani is the owner of ModuLink Design and Build. He has kind of come up with a different way to build houses. It's not modular homes, it's modular construction. He'll speak to us for probably 10-15 minutes. He has what they're calling high value boxes that I think will probably change the way we'll build multifamily homes. The forecast, and we're in the process he's in the process of building a 212 unit builds. The anticipation is saving about half the time. And I think there's some budgetary savings in there too, but I don't want to take away too much of his thunder. The following week, we're going to hear from David Warren, excuse me. He's the owner of Referral Mortgages, and he has his own private equity fund called DICAP Financial. He is very in tune with the CMHC financing as well. He will show you and become an amazing contact. He finances almost all of our builds, and he has been a great source of some short-term financing when things get a little dicey, which they can do from time to time. He's been an amazing asset, and I'm proud to be as a friend and proud to have him on our team. So we're going to have Canadian Financial on as well. They're going to talk a little bit about off-grid financing, tiny home financing, cottage financing. We're going to have the vice president of Gentech Windows and Doors. They're going to come and speak a lot about what's coming down the pipeline, things that you should consider in terms of new strategies and new materials that will save time and money on the installation side. He will also talk about retrofit programs. So for those of you that are fixing cottages, fixing houses, renovating as opposed to building, it's very important to understand how windows and doors work. And when you're looking at your building plans, you need to understand what you're looking at to make sure you will be correct when this $50,000 order shows up. So Phil Normandin is an amazing guy, super smart. He actually happens to be a city councillor in Cantley, Quebec as well. So great guy. We will have the vice president of Dakin HVAC. They will speak to heat pumps. For those of you who know me, I love heat pumps. He's going to explain how they work, why they're the future of heating and cooling, how you can knock down all the ductwork in your house, how you can have a quieter, more efficient, more eco-friendly option in your home. He'll also do a little bit on HRVs and ERVs, the difference between the two, and what you're looking at in terms of different installation applications, which will save you so much time and money on your final planning of your building. I had made some notes. They didn't all fit in there. We have an appraiser lined up. We have an insurance specialist that is specialized in multifamily units. I'm going to bring in a master electrician. Julian's a buddy of mine. He's going to come talk a little bit about how to do electrical layouts, the things you need to look at up front, understanding where your panels go, understanding power, how the hydro inspection works, what happens with ESA. Really important stuff, because in the building project, ESA is really one of two independent assessors. Like, they have a lot of autonomy and they can hold up an entire project and cause you all sorts of problems. So understanding how that works is important. We, like I mentioned, CMHC, I have a health and safety specialist. She happens to actually work for me. If that's something that people would be interested in, we'll have Jessica come and speak to that. She's also a specialist in security clearances. So if you ever want to work on commercial projects with the city, with the government, she runs a small side hustle where she does commercial secret level clearances. So she's a very interesting and knowledgeable young lady. I've lined up a city, sorry, not a city. I've lined up a planner, a designer that used to be a city inspector. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about the pitfalls that happen from the inspection side. Like, what are the 10, 15 things an inspector walks into a house? For those of you who've built, you know that that inspector comes and looks at a 6,000 square foot house in probably 7 or 8 minutes. There's no way they can see it all. So what he's going to speak to are the things they're looking for that will cause you to fail inspections. Failed inspections, time, money. So to hear it from the horse's mouth, he was an inspector for several years for the city of Alfred. And then one day he just looked around and said, well, why don't I just start designing? And I use him for a lot of my stuff because when things go bad, he just calls the inspector and helps me kind of massage things forward. So really smart guy. If there's any interest, I know the city manager of Rockland, Clarence Rockland, the municipality I live in, very well. I love building in tertiary markets. People that know me, I kind of ramble on about this all the time. If there's an interest there, I can have him come on and talk about the benefits of building outside of the city, the advantages you'll see moving away from the core, into my opinion, the ease of construction, and it's the reason that I pretty much only build outside of Ottawa now.
Aaron,
Yes.
you asked for people's feedback on having the general manager or whatever from Rockland come join us. Just speaking for myself, I'm a yes on that. I see that Dale has said he's a yes on that. Is there anybody else who wants to hear directly from a secondary or tertiary city? If the answer is yes, put it in the in the chat box, and if we get a lot of yeses, that would be good. And then there was one other person you were thinking about inviting. I think it was health and safety. We're not going to do that poll right now, but next week, Aaron, if you can remind me, we'll ask people next week about it, because I don't want to confuse one poll with the other. Okay.
Yes, so absolutely.
Next week we'll ask about health and safety, but right now, and I'll just tell you that these secondary markets, whether it's Prescott, where I showed you a project that basically doubled in value in 18 months, or Rockland, which is actually a secondary market in my opinion, as opposed to a tertiary one, is growing very fast, very successful, and being as dominant as Aaron and his partners are in Rockland has really helped. You heard about the Bourget train station. City Council not only gave them the land and the building for free, they gave them a $450,000 to grant to fix it up. So and there's a lot of advantages to working in small towns, not least of which is the fact that most of the processes, the planning processes and the approval processes are faster. A couple other notes. Aaron mentioned we're going to have an appraiser come and talk to us. Getting good appraisals if you're going to buy and hold is very important, because you want to refinance. We're going to have a young woman that I've been using a lot. Her name is Rebecca Simon. She's going to come on and talk about her work with commercial appraisals, multi-res, etc. She's dynamite. And Michael, who's on the call with us from BC, has been telling me lately, get a second opinion. If you had a medical condition that was pretty serious, you'd want a second opinion. Well, think about your buildings as a medical condition. I am often now getting, Denise, are you listening? I'm often getting a couple of appraisals. Not, if I get one that's really low and I don't accept it, I get a second one or even a third one. Michael, I think, has done somewhere. He's had even 3 or maybe even 4 appraisals. Just keep going until you get somebody who really understands your project. And I think Jake, you've had some problems with that as well. So we're going to have Rebecca come on and talk about what she's looking for, what information she needs from you, how she can get you the appraisal that you need. if you give her the right information in the right format. So I'm going to do that, or we're going to do that. And then we're going to have somebody from the Business Development Bank of Canada, BDC, is going to join us. Her name is Amelia Campbell, another young woman in her early 30s, a young mother, and she's a dynamite banker. I mean, dynamite. And BDC bills itself as the Bank of Entrepreneurs. And generally speaking, they don't really like real estate, except that they're financing a whole bunch of it if you know how to package it right. So we want to talk about CMHC financing, but I also want to talk about entrepreneur financing from BDC. So we're going to have 2 young women join us. All right, back to you, Aaron.
Thank you. Oops, I'm jumping through this. Hold on just a sec. Not sure how to go backwards.
Just before, while
There we
you're
go.
doing that, Chiranjeev had a question for you. How much loan can one get for the construction of a multifamily? Is it 90% loan to value, and the value of new constructed building is calculated on a cap rate? How do you go about financing it? And there's 2 different questions there, Chiranjeev. One is, how do you do construction financing, and the other is, how do you do takeout financing?
Yeah.
Question for you, Aaron.
I would like to say that construction financing as a builder is probably the bane of my existence. I have a lot of thoughts on construction financing. The biggest thing is the requirement of excessive capital at the front end, because it'll always run out for the builder. It just always does. The biggest downside to construction financing is they finance completed actionable items. So in other words, your foundation gets poured, that's a financeable item. But as you're building a home, you have to order windows, doors, kitchens, siding. That's all stuff that has to be ordered in advance of the project. You will spend anywhere from 10 to 25% of the total cost upfront. That is not, it is not a reimbursable item until that siding's on the wall, the windows are hung, the flooring's in. And no matter how much money you have on the construction finance side, the draws, they will never keep up. You will always be behind. I would never, ever enter into a project where you don't have an excess of capital upfront. That is your little hush fund, so to speak.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. And also there are the soft cost, and that is also scary in terms of architect designing and permits and also.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you for answering
So
that.
Chiranjeev, just to add to what Aaron said, is financing of your project is a very complicated question. Construction financing, Aaron pointed out, you do need cash. There's no question about that. But there are ways to finance projects that reduce the amount of cash that you're going to need. And so there are private equity funds that will come to the table. They will ask for security, not just security over the project, but if you have other projects, they may ask for a blanket mortgage. But with those kinds of things, Chiranjeev, you can get closer to 80% or 90% loan to value. But the typical construction financing these days is maybe a maximum of 80%, and the typical takeout on commercial or mixed use buildings or multi-res could be as low as 65%. That's why we need funders like BDC, private equity funds, we need CMHC and others, because otherwise, real estate entrepreneurs like us, to put up 35% of a project's cost in terms of equity means either you have to have the money or you have to have investors or partners who have the money. So if you want to keep more of the equity of your project, we need to know how to access private equity money or private funding. We need to know more about CMHC, and we also need to know what BDC can do for us. All right, so that's where we're going, but we can't really answer that, in the next 5 minutes. So you'll have to come back.
Sure, Bruce. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aaron.
No problem. Okay, keep going there, Aaron.
And just to further, it's just to know, to Bruce's point, that in some cases you have access to something. Like everyone needs a bailout. I don't care what the project is. At some point, you're overextended, there's an issue, something has to happen. Even if you know that you have these connections through BDC that you can reach out to, whether it's private, it doesn't matter what it looks like, there always has to be a slush fund for these projects to move forward. And this is spoken more on the constructor side, because there's nothing worse than having people say they can't pay. It's not exciting. So moving forward, Bruce has kind of asked and suggested that it would be a really wise idea that once a week I will share a case study from one of the businesses I do, to kind of help act as a guide towards explaining the animations, to showing kind of the stuff that I'm working on, and maybe help guide you all with the homework that Bruce has laid out for everyone. Potentially even some inspiration on some projects that you're doing. I do a fairly large swath of different projects, so there will probably cover on something that you're thinking about or interested in. I'll do one on small living village. It's a little bit different than what we're doing with Small Living Company, which builds tiny homes. We've started a new company that will actually build villages for people that have land. As a little early notice, myself and my business partner, Brad, we're heading to Mexico in about a month to meet with Dan Aranda, who I believe is on this call. And it looks like we're going to be developing a second location of Hammond Hill in Cancun, about 45 minutes outside of Cancun. And I think Michael is still on this call. We're looking at a very serious development on Lasqueti Island on the western coast in Vancouver Island. And we're in the process of potentially moving 180 unit tiny living village to the west side of Ottawa. It's one of the more interesting things that we're doing. I think it applies to anyone that has some land and can correct and manage their zoning correctly. But it's going to be the future of one of the things we do. At this point, we're positioned to be a very unique offering and maybe one of the only people in the world that's doing what we're doing. So we're very proud of it. We'll talk about it extensively at length, but that's just kind of a sneak preview of what's coming up from that. We will look a little bit at Hammond Hill, the trials, the tribulations, the storm. We took a big storm last year. We lost 4,500 trees in 5 minutes. But that loss has led to the first tiny home development because we just pivoted. I brought in a bulldozer and we raised the ground, and now we're doing tiny homes. So I want to look a little bit at that, how we started, why we started, how it's an eco park, and the real serious challenges that we faced and the things that we did to overcome them. To Bruce's earlier point, it's not the successes that define us, it's the failures and how we respond. It's really what's make our story. It's what makes you get on the news. It's all those kind of heritage pieces that are really important. For those of you who might want to open a brewery or a distillery, which I'll probably open a distillery in about 2 years. I have some plans in the works now. We'll talk a little bit about the beer business, the challenges that come on like the beer business / restaurant side. I like some of it, I hate some of it, and I'll kind of expand on that for you. We'll look at sixplex construction or multifamily home construction as a case study, because I know that's what probably most of you are really excited about. We're going to look at a heritage building that I built. I renovated the Billy Bishop building downtown. It's an 8,000 square foot house. Billy Bishop was the World War I flying ace, and we renovated over the course of 2 years the entire building inside and out. And as a side note, it was the headquarters of Heritage Canada. So I promise you, I know more about heritage building than any human being should ever know, because they were there the entire time. So the things I thought I knew about heritage building, I learned were completely wrong, and I'll never build another heritage building, to be perfectly frank. It's too hard. I do want to show you the project that we're going to be doing for the Bourget train station. It's kind of going to be a legacy piece for me. I think it's really neat. It should highlight the advantages to relationship. I don't know if I emphasize that enough, but I'm a relationship person, and that matters, like this relationship, but it matters more with my subs, with the people I deal with in the city. The relationships that we've set up are what are helping us move all of these projects forward. We get a lot of favors. And I took a phone call last week from the city manager. He offered us, like literally offered us 10 acres of land for us to build another tiny home development. And we get it for free. All we have to do is manage the property. And that's exclusively because of relationships. They love what we're doing. They see what we're doing. They understand the passion, and we can move forward with some really interesting stuff. The last one I want to talk about, I do some cottage construction as well that probably pertains to maybe about 15% of you. I renovated, I took an amazing deal on a cottage. I picked up a cottage for $80,000 that had flooded 2 times. I lifted it, renovating it, and we'll look at some really exciting numbers by taking a property that was for most people trash and should have been burned. We navigated a bunch of city planning by leaving the footprint the same and just gutting the whole thing, and it's a pretty interesting project. So the case study I'd like to talk about today is
Can
a
I
building
interrupt you
that-
just for one more
Of
thing
course.
that's going on the chat box? I apologize, Aaron, for interrupting you. We have Chiranjeev, we have on the call with us today, Denise and Stuart McPherson, who are experts at RRSP second mortgages. So another way you can, get closer to, maybe 90% loan to value is you get a 65% loan to value mortgage, and then you top it up with maybe a 25% RRSP second mortgage. And Denise and Stuart, I don't know if you're okay with the idea of putting your contact information in the chat box, but I think you should, Chiranjeev, and anybody else. I know, Jake, you have been talking to Denise and Stuart McPherson about this as well, but they are truly expert in it. They've helped me out on a number of my projects. And I'm really grateful because I couldn't expand my portfolio at anywhere close to the rate I've been doing it without their help. So back to you, Aaron.
Yeah, just to second that, I met them both in Mexico for a week. They're geniuses. Like when they spoke, very few people surprised me as much as they did. They just knew so much about something that I really had no idea about. So it was eye-opening. And I would encourage you to reach out to them if they're okay with that. So anyhow, the next case study I want to show you is the office that Brad and I purchased together. We bought this last year in January. With the express purpose of it becoming a business opportunity for both of our wives. It is 2132 Laurier. For those of you who are from our area, it is the old home of the original doctor of Rockland. So it's Dr. Corbett's building. Most people know it as that building, and it's immediately adjacent to the biggest church in town. So it's a very hard building to miss. The zoning was interesting. The bottom part was zoned commercial because there was an accounting firm in there, and the top and the back is a residence. It is just over 4,000 square feet. It's like a split level to a split level to a split level. And one of the really intriguing things to this building is it's a floating slab. I've never seen them in a residential application before. You see them in apartment buildings. It was incredibly complicated to convert the floating slab into a commercial space. We had to install very large steel beams to support the load, because when you go from residential to commercial, you go from a 40 PSI rating on a residence to requiring 100 PSI to make it commercial. So I did things in this building that I've never done in a residence in my life. And I kind of hated the building for a long time, to be very honest. This is the original listing. We paid just a hair more than the $760 you see on the screen. One of the interesting things, if you look at the lot size, it should kind of shoot right out at you. What this building is, it's landlocked by the church on the left-hand side over here, and it's landlocked by a development on the right side. So this is actually 2 lots that have been joined. And as the purpose of the city, they realized they can't sever the back lot because it can never be built upon. So the lot size is absolutely huge, and it's a really unique part of the building itself. So when we got the property, it was an accounting office in the basement. I'll show you the plans in a minute. They had 3 office spaces in the basement. And I realized that my wife was going to move into the basement, and she opened up her own, she's a medical esthetician. So she has a medical spa. She does like laser treatments and stuff that I can't even pronounce, to be honest. And we moved her into the basement. I completed the renovation. We took possession January. A full renovation, new floors, new septic, new underground piping, new kitchen, new bathroom, all new offices, all the structural. She was in the building in 2.5 months, fully operational. So it was kind of a success story in terms of speed to turn it over on the commercial side as fast as it was. And I wouldn't say this is going out to the city. I didn't even pull a building permit for it. I found a way to stay within the rules. I didn't change a lot of things, and I have no building permit, and I had the city inspector walk through and I showed him the whole building and I had no problems. I turned this over very fast that way. She's was rented out at $2,000 a month. She's a triple net lease, which means she pays everything, which she hates. I think it's somewhat funny from time to time. And we just moved the rent up this month to $2,500. I'll show you what we did. We just rejigged the floor pan a little bit. We added in a kitchenette, and we cut half of a mechanical room in half, and I put in a spray tan room, which was, I mean, the mechanical room was being used for storage and had nothing in it but a boiler. So it was a really easy fit up. And we added 2 extra rooms, which adds her 2 extra opportunities for revenue, and it increases our rent. The top part, we built an office almost by happenstance. We realized that there was an available space, so we converted what was an old living room. We converted into a 400 square foot office. I installed a kitchenette. I put in a bathroom. We actually installed an incinerating toilet. And we did that because the plumbing in this building was very difficult to fix. So we spent the money on an incinerating toilet, which is about a $6,500 option, but I didn't have to do any plumbing. Incinerating toilets have no sanitary connection and they have no water connection. So they could literally go anywhere, and it changed the entire. I wouldn't say it, but I didn't pull a building permit for this either. Came through and walked it. I explained what I was doing. Due to the relationship, they were happy. We were done. We moved along pretty easily. We rent this actually to ourselves. I run a couple businesses that rent this out. So my excavation company pays $500. I pay $500, and then Blair Capital, one of our funds, pays $500 on that side. The back of the building is, as I mentioned, kind of a split level to a split level. We're going to be converting that into Rockland's first yoga studio. The bottom half will be hot yoga, which is very challenging to build. I used to do all the construction for Moksha Yoga. So I've built about, I don't know, 6 or 7 different yoga studios over the years. I designed and built one for Le Club Sportif in Gatineau. And yoga studios are challenging because the temperature and humidity has to be thought through. And the materials that you use in them are not conventional. The radiant panels and things that are not really that normal. But we're pretty excited to be the first to offer it in Rockland. They're currently renting that out at $5,000 a month for about 2,200 square feet. And the renovation on that side will be done in about 2 months. It's one of the areas where, as we were building, when we talk about construction and financing, we were underfunded on this build. And things got a little bit interesting because of all the floating slabs. We added in about $60,000 to $70,000 in structural costs that had not been anticipated. So we'll talk to David, and we'll look at how David he didn't save the day, but he came to the rescue. It's a higher interest loan, but it allowed us to move forward and keep plugging away. So I do have a fair bit of experience where the financing has become an issue, and now knowing a little bit of what to do to fix that it's just so critical to anyone that's building.
So Aaron, can I add something here?
Yes, of course.
So everybody, you notice that I think the rental income now on this property, it's about 4,000 square feet, is $9,250. That's the gross income, correct? That, I mean, not the gross income, that's the total income, right?
Yes.
All right, so go back one slide, just go back one slide. I just want to make a quick point here. Triple net leases, think about that. Commercial and even some residential, depending on how you do it, you can apply triple net leasing. Triple net leasing means that the tenants pay their utilities, the tenants pay their share of property taxes, the tenants pay their share of operating expenses on top of the base rent or the minimum rent. So the rent that Aaron and his partners are getting from this building is $9,250 per month. That's the total rent, excluding the add-ons, the 3 add-ons that I just mentioned. Now, what's interesting about that, for those of you who know residential, is that's the equivalent of net operating income. So let's just do a quick calculation for everybody, okay? With my handy dandy 5-function calculator. We've got $9,250 of triple net rent on this property. You multiply that by 12, it means that Aaron and his partners are getting $111,000 a year in triple net rent. That is your net operating expenses. Now, 2 years ago or a year ago, we would have applied about a 5 or 5.5% cap rate to value the building. Today, it's 7% because interest rates have gone up. And maybe one day it'll go back to 5% or 4%, but right now it's 7%. So what we do is we divide net operating income by 0.07, the fair market value cap rate, and we get a value of this building of about $1.6 million. Does that make sense to you, Aaron?
Yep.
So when you're valuing buildings based on net operating income, it's not complicated. You don't need a lot of comparables, because to find a building that's comparable to this, Aaron, in Rockland, I think would be impossible.
Yes, it's a unique property.
So if you think about it, Aaron's created a building that's worth $1.6 million, but he's not finished yet. Notice that when he harnesses the backyard, which is, as you heard, is very, very, very deep, he can put a food truck back there. He can put yurts back there. He can add custom lighting and sound and do a wedding venue back there, which will add more to his net operating income or his triple net leasing. All right. So he might drive the value to 2 million or more, right, with some additional income. So you should be thinking about your building, not just what you can do inside, but also what can you do outside. Today, if you have a building downtown and you can add a patio outside and it adds $400,000 a year of revenues, that's a good thing, right? So think about not just what you can do inside, but what you can do outside of the building. Now, in terms of what you bought this building for and what you spent renovating it, do you know what that total cost is likely to be?
The renovation cost will be around $325,000.
All right, so you bought it for, I think, just under 800,000.
Yes.
And you add, say, I'm just making up numbers, 350,000, just to round it up. You're at about 1.15 million, and the building will be worth about 1.6 million. I think we lost Aaron, but you guys get what I'm coming from. So this is what I would consider a single or a double at this stage, right? As Aaron learns more about the building and he develops it further, and it ranges in the $2 million or $2.5 million range, he'll turn it from, in baseball terms, from a single or a double to maybe a triple or even a home run. But that's a pretty good start, Aaron.
Yeah. And really, like when we looked at the backyard, we just didn't know what to do with it, and then realized we already have the businesses to plug into it. We have the barbecue, we have the brewery. They'll all jump in and rent, and why not? Like the city, there is a very limited amount of restaurants in downtown Rockland, so the city actually loves this idea because we're going to add in some occupational area for people to come and enhance the value of the city. One of the big takeaways I took from my time with the city management team, especially in these secondary and tertiary markets, is they want to be a primary market. They have very big ideas and they are looking to elevate their status as a city. So anyone can do all these interactions and meetings with your city councilors when we're going to add 4 units. It's what are you bringing to the city that is going to be good for them? And that's how we approach every interaction. And it's why most of this, we applied for our building permit for the renovation for Simply Yoga, the yoga studio. And I will tell you this, I had done half the renovation myself. It was half done before we even applied for the permit. And I had the head city inspector come through, ask what I was doing. I explained it to him. The permit was approved in 1 day. Okay. We had the permit the next day. And that is exclusively because of the relationship. First yoga studio. What can we do for you, Mr. and Mrs. City Manager? And it changes the dynamic of the relationship, where now the management team comes to us with ideas as opposed to us having to go for them. I cannot stress that to be. Right. I just wanted to show you, this was the basement where my wife has her studio. On the left-hand side is exactly how we found it. I made like simple little changes left-hand side right over here was a closet. It hadn't served no functional purpose. I closed this door, opened this up, and I put a kitchenette with a laundry machine in here. So now I have a full kitchenette where all the staff can sit and have lunch, and they can do their own laundry because they have no laundry downstairs in the basement. The other simple thing we did, we took this massive furnace room, we put in a cut-off wall, and now I have a spray tan booth for my wife. It's a little warm in there, but people are only in there for like 5 or 6 minutes. These are really easy animations. They took hardly any work. They took hardly any money. And it just makes sense. When you look at it and you walk your space, you're always looking for ways to add rentable space. And these are piece of cake renovations. This does not require permitting. You're erecting some simple walls. You do have to stay true to some of the fire separations and whatnot, but it's all one business. So I didn't really have to worry about that. And the other thing we did is you see that this huge information desk, which didn't make any sense. So instead we made that back room larger. So now we can charge more rent for that room as well, because all you need is a simple desk when you come in. These fixes might have cost me $20,000 when you factor in the kitchenette. So there's really nothing there, and it took no time. This was all done in under 3 weeks. Really easy stuff. And it's all just by looking at space. We'll get into this because I'll do a section on how to look at plans and the things I look at. One of my biggest tools that I carry with me everywhere I go is painter's tape. And it is so easy to walk into a space and lay out an approximate size. How big do you want your office? Where does your chair sit? Painter's tape for a $5 roll will save you so much hassle on your ongoing constructions, whether it's in your home or in a multifamily unit. I make a lot of my decisions based on taping out layouts. So really, as I mentioned, the keys to successful construction on this was looking at this from a bird's eye view. I knew we were going to build it with the express purpose of putting my wife in and Brad's wife in as business owners. But then we looked further. How can we animate this property? And when you look at it from the top, it becomes a lot easier thing to look at. Very often we get stuck on this like tunnel vision of like, I have to do this perfectly. It's like, what can we do? By moving along and pivoting, we added in 400 square feet of office space, and now we're going to have a huge backyard opportunity. Flexibility, if anyone knows me at all well on this course, I am not a static thinker. I never have been. Your ability to pivot and move around and not get stuck on ideas. That's one of the things that makes me so crazy when you do custom stuff is people really want it to be the way it is. It's the reason I work for investors, and I tell them at the beginning of every build, do not get static on these decisions. If something comes up that's a better opportunity, let's pivot, let's save you money. Flexibility in your thinking has to be key to being a successful developer. I put in here understanding tenants. Again, one of them is my wife. I should have thought this one through a little bit better. But one of the things we were able to do is during the construction, and you know, we offered her some deals. So we were able to bring in, she brought in a subtenant. We gave her a bit of a deal because it was a bit noisy, but the space was occupied, generating rent. I've talked about this exclusively, the connections with the city. I can't even stress how amazing that is. We did talk about the fact that we did run out of some money at certain points, but having the right people on the team allowed us to pivot and make these decisions really fast. We will go over this owner-operator model. It is something I'm so passionate about. Every business I open now, I open from an owner-operator model. The barbecue truck, we found a chef. We're going to give him shares of the business, and it'll be his to run. It's what allows me to be successful and offer more and more businesses. And this is a Bruce thing. You animate every chance you can. Everything that comes up should be animated. I'll let Bruce do this one because this is actually mostly Bruce's math, and he speaks about this far better than I ever could. So I'll hand this one over to you, Mr. Bruce.
Well, sort of, I've already gone through it. You know, I used my function calculator to show it. So this was a little bit more optimistic view done a few months ago when cap rates were a little bit lower, fair market value cap rates. So I used 6.7% here instead of 7%. And we assumed that the net operating income would be a little higher, 120,000 rather than 110. So I think the project, when it's finished, will be worth 1.6 million to maybe as much as 1.8 million. But as you all know, we get better at operating our buildings as we get more experience. And I'll bet you, 2 or 3 years from now, interest rates may come down and cap rates may come down and the value may exceed 2 million. If Aaron has, 1.1 or 1.2 million into this with his investor group, and it reaches 2 million or even more in the next 3 years, which I think it will, then, that will be a home run. What we try and do as developers, as investors, is we try and make 100% returns. And I learned that from my dad, before he passed away, that because our business is so difficult, there are so many, things that can go wrong. My dad told me you have to aim for 100% increase on value. And I went, as a young man, I thought, well, Dad, that's very aggressive. But he said to me, there's so many muck-ups and there's so many things that go wrong. Your planning takes longer than you thought. Your financing costs you more than you believed possible. Construction goes up, things are delayed. There's a strike or something happens. A pandemic gets in the way. Who would have expected that? And costs, I don't have to tell anybody on this call, plywood tripled in price. Lumber tripled in price for, about a year. So many things can go wrong that you want to try and aim for as much as 100% increase in value as an entrepreneur.
Yep. What I want to talk about a little bit about is what we'll focus on from myself on my side, the next course. I've developed a module that will talk us through and walk us through the best way that I see to run a project. And it has sections in there on how to deal with your neighbors, how to move the agenda forward. I can't tell you how many times we've had issues with neighbors that stop projects. I know that's happened to everyone on this call. I have some strategies that I've been using for 6 years that are interesting, but the focus for me entirely will be project specific. It's not so much what the project is, because it doesn't actually matter that much. It's how to run that project. And all the strategies that I've found and the notes that I've made over the last 10, 15 years that are like, well, next time I need to do this better. We learn from everything we do wrong, and theoretically we should be improving every time. And I have a pretty big notebook of these, and the things we did to fix them. And that's what I've designed. The next phase of this, the next week, is to focus on what I would call project management and project sustainability.
That's great. And I want to emphasize again, something I've been learning more of in the last few months from Aaron, and that is when he talks about being a green builder, there's greenwashing, which is kind of like whitewashing, where you're talking about being green, but you're really not doing anything. And then there's really doing something. And I think we're going to learn a lot from Aaron on that side as well. And to me, Aaron, when people talk about going green, they're often talking about, oh, well, costs will be higher. But in actual fact, many of these green initiatives will, in fact, lower costs, or at least operating costs. And we'll talk more about that. So I think that's important for what we're doing. So listen, I want to thank everybody for coming today, especially you, Aaron, for all the work that you're doing in this course. It's going to be a great course. It'll get better and better. Especially as we get more participation through the chat box. And of course, we're going to have you guys unmute yourself too. Now, I hope you copied some of the stuff out of the chat box. We've got Denise and Stuart McPherson's information in there. Aaron, just put for one more time, everybody knows how to get a hold of me, but put your contact information in the chat box. So if you want to get a hold of Aaron directly, you can either by text or by email. And I hope you all come back next Thursday at noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time, and we'll do a lot more. If you have any questions, email me at any time, or Aaron as well. Just before we break off, again, Aaron, thank you.
Thanks all.
All right, everybody. I'll see you later.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Aaron. Bye now.
Good to see you, Dale.
See ya.